I think it's
getting
just
into
dumb.
chemistry.
And I actually agree with Han Solo. There's nothing better like a good blaster by your side. You know, that's way better, I think. But same thing with a Vorpal sword. We know what a sword is, and we know Vorpal is in an adjective place to sword. We go through the whole thing and discover that all of the words that he's created for us probably aren't from like a German poem, which some people have argued that it's a Schwäbisch poem that he translated basically into English. Probably not. But I mean, that's, you know, there are intellectuals that actually spend a lifetime researching stupid stuff like that, and they enjoy it. You know, it's one of those things. You know, but when you think about it, one of the things he's teaching us is the structure of the language works a certain way. So when you study different languages, German has a slightly different grammar than English, right? Famously, you always have to put the verb at the end. You know, so they're all waiting for the the verb to. You know, my wife, when she speaks German, she always ends up with her hand language like this, and then at the end of the sentence she goes like this. So it's like she's holding the verb until she gets to the end, right?
Ich verstehe das nicht. Would don't be the.
Well, in that case, you don't have to put the verb at the end, but
I studied, checked out German a little bit, and yeah, there we go. It is really interesting, though, especially the similarities that we have.
well,
German
so a quiz question I could ask you. I got a couple in mind. One was, what was the point of Jabberwock? We could ask that. Another one is, can you think of any narratives that don't follow the monomyth? Or we have another one. It's easy to create a new word, but can you create a new grammar? A new grammar aspect. Like we have verbs, we have nouns or subjects, predicates. Right? We have adjectives, pronouns, limiting adjectives, right? Infinitives, you know, adverbs, right? Do we have an adverb? Can you make an adverb? What would that be? Create new grammar. But I can create Vorpal sword, lightsaber, Borogroves. It's clearly a noun. Where the argument is that the Borogroves are the bourgeoisie in the poem. So there's all kinds of arguments. So which of those three quiz questions would you like? Actually, you could pick your own. Of the three, which one would you rather do? You know, can you make your own grammar? Can you invent new grammar in the language? That would be one quiz question. Another one is, can you think of a meta-narrative, or a narrative rather, that doesn't use the monomyth? Or the other one, of course, what was the moral of the story of Jabberwock? By the way, I'll throw something else that I think is interesting out. Stories are neither true nor false. The same way when we talk about arguments, we say that arguments are either valid or invalid. They're not true or false. Statements are true or false. And statements are neither valid nor invalid. Although occasionally what I've heard a lot of people will say is, that's a valid point. We like saying that. And I think what they say is, that's true. That statement is true. Right? But validity we usually leave for arguments. Did you have a question?
Yeah, it's just the Jabberwock. It seems like you're not very good on figure out the meaning of, because you get from him not reading that the Jabberwock is bad and murderous, it has the claws and everything kind of just starts out with him like going to get it and stuff. You never really learn what his motivation is. Like maybe the Jabberwock's been causing problems in his community or something. But you're really kind of left to speculate besides like that it's dangerous. But I would have mentioned it too.
Could be misunderstood or just the familiar.
In my mind, one version of it is when your son drives on the Glen Highway in winter for the first time, and he comes back alive. Yes! You've met the Jabberwock, and you made it. You're back. So yeah, you're leaving the protection of the family. You're going off into that dangerous world. Whatever the Jabberwock is, there's dangers out there, and when you come back, you're going on to Iraq, and then you come home. Wow, what a relief, right, to the family. So, in a general sense, I think of it that way. But I'm just there's no correct interpretation of any story. You think about it. It's kind of interesting. And stories are not true or false because we're interpreting the statements and their connection. So when you tell Jesus rose on the third day, right? Okay, well, that might be true, but why? What was going on? Right? Everything else is going to be interpretation. And no wonder people can argue over it and kill one another over different interpretations. That's pretty impressive. That stuff like that gets important enough that people would kill over it. And another thing that, in a sense, bothers me, it's been bothering me, of course, for at least a couple of years, is that when someone says so-and-so lied, he's lying, right? And you can say that about Trump saying something, or someone else saying something, and Trump saying, back and forth, fake news, right, or whatever, right? What does it mean to be true? Well, it has to be thanks to Aristotle, our tradition, it has to be a categorical statement. And there's only four types that can be true or false. Can you see that? Is it big enough for you to see? Or do you need larger font? So 4 types of statements. This is from Aristotle. They're A-E-I-O statements, although that's a Latin additional naming. And it stands for affirmo, I affirm, nego, I deny. The I, in this case, is the I from affirmo, and the O is the O from nego. So the one is the universal affirmative. You have 2 sets. The first one says everything in the subject set is also in the predicate set. Universal, all of them. Affirmative, they're in there, right? So everything that's a horse is also an animal, right? No S's P, so they're mutually excluded. The 2 sets, no cats are dogs, right? They're mutually excluded, right? And it's universal, right? All of them, right? Particular affirmative, some are in that set, but you're not affirming all of them. You're just affirming some, and then some are not, right? So some blondes don't have more fun, right? If you think about it, all blondes have more fun. That's false. I've talked to blondes, and some of them are not having more fun. No blondes have more fun. That's also false, because there are some blondes that do have fun, right? So you have some blondes have more fun. That's true, right? Some blondes do not have more. That's true, right? So think about it. Every sentence that we can think of, every statement you can make that's true or false has to be one of these four types of statements. They might not look like it. You might have to... Go ahead.
Okay. So help me out with this one, because it has to be a true statement, right?
Or
We're
false.
testing to see if it's true or false. So my hair is brown.
Yes.
How
that's
would you...
everything that is in the set of things that is your hair is also in the set of things that is brown.
But
So that's
not
an A
true,
statement.
'cause I do have gray hair. I'm old enough to be a lot of these kids'
Ah,
parents.
well, then what you
So-
just told me is I was misled. That was false. Some of the things that are your hair are brown, and some of the things that are your hair are not brown because they're gray.
Let's do another one.
Anybody have another
This
one?
is good.
This is not my fault. This is 2,500 years old. Whether your family knew about it or not.
This is a bottle of water.
That's an A statement. Everything that is that is a bottle of water.
Every insect has 6 legs.
Is that true?
It has to have 6 legs.
Or more.
Can't have more. If it has more, it's not a... Well, wait a minute. 1,000-legger.
Are they like
Is that an insect?
They're all like
Or
insects.
that's another
It's a
thing.
different thing, I think.
And spiders have 8, but they're not insects either.
They're arachnids.
What you're testing out, by the way, is the Greek method of categorizing everything. What Aristotle meant by knowledge was when you know the correct categories and their relationships for everything, you basically then described the world. And if you knew all of it, you know everything. And not just with regard to animals, but also things like with regard to story types and so on. So if we look at Aristotle categories, so this is a particular book, right, by categories. And this is basically grammar, how grammar works, right? Forms of speech are either simple or composite, etc., right? Anyway, this is pretty boring stuff, by the way, but nonetheless, it's pretty famous stuff. So let me go back and look at the works by Aristotle. So you can see. So the Athenian Constitution, he gives us categories on dreams. So he classifies and explains dreams. The gait of animals. You measure the different animals by the way they walk, their pace, how they walk. Generation and corruption is birth and death. Evolution, basically. On the heavens, how the heavens go. The history of animals. On interpretation. On longevity and shortness of life. He doesn't say don't smoke because they didn't have cigarettes then. On memory and reminiscence. You get the idea? Metaphysics, meteorology, weather, right? On the motion of animals, Nicomachean ethics, how to have good character. Nicomachus was his son, by the way. On the parts of animals, physics, poetics, politics, etc. So what you see, and by the way, all these are the books, so you can actually go and read them on the internet for free, of course. Multiple kinds of translations, actually. And rhetoric, right? How to make a good speech. You should start every speech with a laugh. So whenever I want to give a speech, I look at everybody and I go, ha 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 ha. It's a laugh. Etc. So what he's doing is applying his theory of categories to everything that he was aware of. So that's pretty cool. So when we're using true or false statements, we're using this set as now we can have more complex statements. So for example, I could say your name is Jack, and it's not the case that your name is Jack. That whole compound statement is true because both parts contradict one another. Did I say or and? I said and? Oh shoot, sorry. Then that's false. The whole thing is false. If I had said or, then it would be true.
Had me wondering that.
I've been out of practice teaching for 4 hours, since last summer.
Welcome back.
Tea should help me. Okay, so
That is either tea or it is not.
It's whiskey.
the whiskey comes after class. Good drink, Janice. That would be right.
Be fitting. Jameson looks similar, actually.
I wouldn't nearly be as lucid if it were Jameson's, but that's okay. Okay, so you get the idea. We'll do a lot more with this when we get into the Aristotelian syllogisms, because your arguments are going to be valid or invalid based on the actual statements you put together. So, for example, is Wikipedia okay? So here's Barbara, for example. Where'd it go? Barbara, come back. Oh, there she is. Okay. So Barbara is 3 statements. This is an A statement, an A statement, an A statement. All men are mortal, all Greeks are men, therefore all Greeks are mortal. So, by the way, that's true. All men are mortal. All Greeks are men, that's true. All Greeks are mortal, that's true. And if these two are true, this has to be true. Notice that it is. So that's a valid argument.
But, aren't there some Greeks that are women?
It means human.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're using men in the sense, well, actually at the time, they weren't even thinking about the women at all. But yeah, today we would say, of course, human.
Women are
I'm very
immortal.
kind of them. So all humans. Are
Well, I think it eventually got to the point where the women went on a sex strike unless they changed, and so that happened.
Lysistrata? Is that how you pronounce it?
Lysistrata. That's banned in some places. They won't. Probably is, at least in Georgia. I don't know. Okay, but so here's what we're doing. What we're looking at when we're doing syllogisms, there's 256 possible such arrangements. AAA1, AAA2, AA3, AA4, EEE1, EEE2, EEE3, EEE4. There's 4 of all the different moods. So we'll do it. Don't worry about it. You'll see how it works. It's actually very, very easy. Medieval monks had to memorize them and then would go head to head in like a debate with one another who was fastest. Buddhist monks do something similar, but they're not using Aristotelian syllogism. So this is cool. But So if someone's lying, but what if you say that they're lying, but what they are saying is something like a fetus is a person, and you don't believe it. You think a fetus is an organism, a glob of red jelly, could be removed, no problem, right? What you've got is a situation where people are not in agreement on whether the statement is true or false. But if I say, you're lying, a fetus is a person, or you're lying, a fetus is not a person, right? And that, that's a real issue for us right now, because one of our states, maybe two, have,
like 3 or 4 ago.
is it already have signed? Because it's been actually signed into law, although it doesn't go into effect until January, I think.
Alaska proposed a bill.
31 states are proposing or have signed into legislation trying to ban abortion. 31.
So this is a
nationwide.
live issue for us. And when you get right down to it, if someone says you're lying because a fetus is a person, and they say, no, you're lying because you think a fetus is not a person, they're arguing not over whether a statement is true or false, but over interpretation of a situation. Consensus is what's going to give us the sense that the one statement is true. When I said this is a camera, everybody agreed. You might have, someone might have, and it gets worse if, okay.
So I have a question then, because I'm really curious about this. So all
Good.
people that I know that are against abortion, which is fine, I don't care, whatever. All life is sacred, right? That's the argument.
I
But-
had a hamburger though.
But if all life is sacred, why are so many of those same people that are for, like, they're anti-abortion, why are they pro-death penalty? And why are they pro-war?
Oh.
If all life is sacred, why are they so willing to kill people that they think are worthy of dying, but they're not willing to kill people they don't think are worthy of dying? And why does that worthiness of dying tie to the color of someone's skin?
So your question is answered by the author, who's a Berkeley linguist that wrote the book called "Don't Think of an Elephant." George Lakoff.
Don't think of an elephant?
And if you look George Lakoff up, and look at his videos, and there should be one. This is a good one.
Search brings specialty care to all residents in Southeast, like reliable OBGYN services for pregnancy and childbirth. Visit search.org and ask your doctor for a referral today.
Sorry about the ads.
Specialty care
Can't-
is here for
Who's
you.
listening?
Fora TV. The world is thinking.
Framing is the most ordinary thing you do. You think in terms of structured scroll frames, and let me tell you just a bit about it. The work on this was done in the mid-1970s, 1970.